One of the biggest questions from The Legend of Korra Book 1 was how did Yakone become such a powerful waterbender and bloodbender? In the flashbacks to his trial, we see him effortlessly bloodbend an entire room of people, including Toph, Sokka, and Aang, making them all lose consciousness. This is an ability that we've never seen before in this fashion. Originally, bloodbending is supposed to only be possible during the full moon and still requires the physical motions of bending. But Yakone was able to overcome these limitations and bloodbend in broad daylight without the help of the full moon. How is this possible? My theory is that Yakone is related to Hama from The Last Airbender. She was the original creator of bloodbending. It's possible that Yakone is the son or grandson of Hama, and that Hama passed down her mastery of waterbending and bloodbending to Yakone. Now, nothing concrete confirms that Hama had any children, so this is solely just a theory, but it's entirely possible that Hama had children at some point in her life. Hama developed the technique after being captured and taken prisoner by the Fire Nation during the raids on the Southern Water Tribe. She developed the technique while in prison and used it to escape. Later on, when the gang meets Hama and finds out about her past, Hama is easily able to bloodbend Katara, Sokka, and Aang at one point as they were fighting her. We know that Hama was relatively young when she was captured and invented bloodbending, so she literally had decades to improve and master the ability. We also know that Hama always wanted to take revenge on the Fire Nation for capturing and killing a ton of people from the Water Tribe. She originally wanted Katara to learn bloodbending and carry out her wishes of revenge. Obviously, this didn't work out, but perhaps another attempt was made earlier in her life by having children. She could teach her children how to bloodbend, and thus the technique would live on past her death. So Hama had the motivation, the mastery of waterbending and bloodbending, and the time to raise children and skill to teach them. So I think it's entirely possible that she had children at some point during her life. Moving on to Yakone and his life now, in The Legend of Korra Book 1, we learn the most about him towards the end of the season in the episode Skeletons in the Closet. We find out that Yakone was the leader of an organized crime syndicate, and around 128 AG was when his official trial was. There were accounts and accusations of Yakone bloodbending, which first of all was forbidden in Republic City, but also doing so without a full moon. Toph actually attempted to charge Yakone for years prior to this, but was never able to do so, as people kept saying bloodbending during the day was impossible. During the trial, Yakone eventually stood up and psychically bloodbent everyone in the room, causing mostly everyone to lose consciousness so he could escape. It was only Aang who was able to recover, chase him down, and take his bending away so he wouldn't be a threat anymore. From these flashbacks alone, we can see that Yakone was an extremely skilled and deadly bender. He had mastery over waterbending, he perfected bloodbending, and pushed it even further by learning to do it during the day and solely with his mind. So it's possible that he may come from an extremely powerful and skilled bloodline of benders. A relative like Hama would fit this description perfectly and explain how he became so powerful. Like I previously mentioned, Hama had decades to improve upon this skill, and we know she was seeking revenge on the Fire Nation. It makes a lot of sense that the two could be related, and if they truly are, it would definitely make them one of the most powerful waterbending families in history, or perhaps one of the most powerful bending families in history in general. Of course, this is just a theory, nothing is confirmed in the series, but I think it was a fun one to think about. So to talk about the timeline and see how closely these two are related, let's first start with Hama. We meet her in The Last Airbender, which is around 100 AG. She's very old at this time. I would say probably at least 70 years old. I think it's much more likely she had children at a time much younger in her life, maybe close to the period where we see her flashbacks of being captured and then eventually escaping. Now we know for a fact that Yakone's trial is 128 AG, about 28 years after The Last Airbender. In the flashbacks, it looks like Yakone is about in his 50s. This means that Yakone was born somewhere around 70 to 80 AG. Based on these dates, I think it's much more likely that Yakone was the grandson of Hama rather than her son. Even in her old age, Hama was still a very capable teacher, so it's entirely possible Hama could have taught Yakone as her grandson during her life. Just the fact that Yakone was able to overcome the limitations of bloodbending shows that he is a unique person with enhanced abilities. Also, he was able to have two sons who learned bloodbending, which reinforces the point that they all come from an extremely powerful family lineage of benders, tracing back to Hama. I really do think this theory has some merit and dives a bit deeper into the backstory of Yakone and his family history. So that's pretty much it for this video. What do you think about the theory that Hama and Yakone are related? This was a lot of fun to make, and I always love to think about theories that further connect the events of The Last Airbender and Legend of Korra. Let me know what you think in the comments, and thanks so much for watching!